All right, it's 5 o'clock, so I'll call this meeting to order. Will you all please join me in standing for the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and with that, we'll move right into roll call. Alderperson Ackley?
Here.
Alder Flicky-Paneski?
Here.
Alder Perella?
Here.
Alder Feldy is excused. Chair makes 4, we have a quorum. Skipping over introductions, so item 2.1, the approval of the minutes. Is there any discussion on the minutes from our prior meeting? Seeing none, we'll be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it. That is approved. And then next up, we have item 3.1, which is RO number
Resolution. Go ahead.
sorry. 25 of 21-22. Submitting a claim from Sherry Smith for alleged damages to her vehicle from road debris and/or unsafe driving conditions on the road due to construction on Taylor Drive.
So this claim was denied, and it's just being referred back to you for filing. We denied it because there was no negligence on the part of the city, because the weather had a good portion of the reason why the roadway was the way it was, and there is a state statute that also limits city liability on roadways. So the proper motion would be to file.
Fair enough. Any questions from members of the committee? Otherwise, we'll be looking for that motion.
I move to file.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it. Looks like we have a few of these in a row. 3.2, RO number 26 of 21-22. Submitting a claim from the law office of Daniel J. Raymonds regarding alleged injuries their client suffered when struck by debris from a City of Sheboygan snowplow.
This is also coming back to you just as a report so that you can file the claim. It was denied, and it was denied based on, first of all, a lack of negligence on the part of the city, a lack of the person mitigating their own damages, and a lack of connection between the damages claimed and the occurrence.
And any discussion from committee members? Seeing none. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just curious. I was wondering, so how do we determine that there is no connection? What do we do to assess that?
So we have someone in the finance department who is our investigator, and so when a claim is received, that person does the investigation and just sort of compares. In this case, it was really just a matter of reviewing the various reports, including police reports and the claim that was filed by the person's lawyer.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm guessing we're also looking for a motion to file?
Yes.
I move to file.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it. Moving on to item 3.3, RO number 56 of 21-22. Submitting a claim from Maria F. Hernandez for alleged damages to her truck when a tree fell on top of it.
And this is also coming to you to be filed. The claim has been denied based on no negligence on the part of the city. In this case, the tree had been checked before it fell, and there was no determination that there had been a problem before it fell.
Any discussion?
So the assessment from the, I assume from the DPW of the tree is enough to deny that claim? Because that still is a tree from belonging to the city, so how do we assess that?
Right, so we're only liable for claims where we were negligent. So the fact that we own a tree and the tree fell onto somebody's property in and of itself is not sufficient for us to have to pay a claim. In many cases, what happens is after the fact, we find out that it fell, we just didn't even know that there was a problem with the tree. Interestingly, with this particular claim, as well as another tree claim that you'll see shortly, in both of those cases, somebody from the DPW, the arborist, actually had viewed the tree and had inspected it in less than a year prior to each of these events. So that just makes the case all that much stronger.
Thank you again, thank you.
All right, then if there's no further discussion, we'll be looking for that motion to file.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have the motion and the second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, chair votes aye, the ayes have it. Moving on then to item 3.4, RO number 65 of 2122, submitting a claim from Daniel Codit for alleged damages to his vehicle when it was hit by a rock from a lawnmower.
This is also here for filing. The claim has been denied. There was no evidence connecting the damage to his vehicle to the work being done by our lawnmower. So we have denied the claim and held him to his proof.
All right, any discussion from the committee?
I just would like to know, can they appeal to our denial or not? Or that this closes the cases?
They can sue us,
Okay,
yeah, and they have a limited amount of time in which they can do that.
perfect, thank you.
All right, then seeing no more discussion, we are looking for a motion to file.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye, the ayes have it. Looks like the last of this section is item 3.5, RO number 66 of 2122. Submitting a claim for Peter Reichelstorfer for alleged damages to his vehicle from a tree branch.
This one is also coming to you just to file. The claim has already been denied. We denied it based on it being an act of God, no negligence on the part of the city. In this particular case, again, our arborist had actually inspected it, actually at the neighbor's request previously, and determined that there was no issue. So given that, there's no negligence on the part of the city, and that's why we denied it.
Any discussion from the committee? If not, thank you, Jack. We'll be looking for a motion to file.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed? Chair votes aye, the ayes have it. Then we're on to item 3.6, which is resolution number 51 of 2122, a resolution authorizing the appropriate city officials to execute an engagement letter agreement with Baker Tilly US LLP for strategic consulting, authorizing the city administrator to enter into future scope appendices with Baker Tilly, and authorizing the finance director to make a necessary budget adjustment and appropriation in the 2021 budget.
Thank you, Chair. So as you stated, this is to work with Baker Tilly as a consulting firm to help put together a plan for the strategic plan for the next 5 years. So back in about February of last year, we went out on a request for proposals and received 5 bids from consultants. 3 consultants were shortlisted as part of a small staff review committee. 2 consultants after that were moved forward into the final round. That was the Nova Consulting Group and Baker Tilly. They presented to the management team members. And at that time, the management team members overwhelmingly supported Baker Tilly. So what we're hoping to do with this is to work on another 5-year strategic plan 2023 through 2027, and use an outside consultant to gather a lot more citizen engagement and public input as part of the process. So one of the things back in 2016, the city did not have a strategic plan. Prior to that, under then Administrator Hofflin came in and we did a strategic plan with staff resources. It was an unbudgeted item in the budget at that time, so the city development staff primarily led the process, and there was a little bit of citizen engagement through a community survey and some public open houses, but there wasn't a ton of public engagement, and really our constituents are the ones that should be directing us into how we advance our capital improvement dollars and projects we undertake, and thoughts on that pattern. So the thought pattern is these consultants are good at doing public engagement, and they have the resources to do it, and we don't necessarily have all the internal resources to put together a comprehensive plan as similar to this. So the plan is to bring Baker Tilly in. They are highly recommended. They've done hundreds of these across the Midwest and have a very strong team. As a matter of fact, one of their party on their team, we worked with on the planning side on a number of projects, so she's very familiar with Sheboygan in the past in a prior consulting firm. So we just think that it would be very helpful for us to get a comprehensive plan and get citizen engagement and buy-in in the direction that the city and all of us are going for the next 5 years. So we're recommending, I think it's $141,000 contract. This would come out of the 2021 contingency plan. We would start instituting this in the fourth quarter of 2021 and complete this plan sometime mid-2022 for adoption and ready to move forward in 2023.
Thank you. Comments from the committee? We'll start with Alder Flicky-Paneski.
Sure. Baker Tilly will do a random sample for citizen input. They'll blanket. How will they get a cross-section of the city?
They've put together we've had that discussion with them because in prior inputs that we've done, particularly with the community survey, we get a certain subsection of the population, and we don't get a lot of people on different sides of that age spectrum. So we talked significantly with them on how to develop a community engagement plan through a number of different tools. So some of those tools would be online resources, some of those would be in-person meetings. So they put together a pretty comprehensive community engagement process that will use all different mediums to try to reach different populations.
Okay. And it's a pretty hefty price tag. How long is this project going to take?
How long is the project going to take?
Process.
So the plan would be to start it sometime in November of this year and hopefully come out with a final plan sometime in June or July of 2022 for final presentation. There's a number of public open houses, opportunities to engage with the public, conversations with the council, and then ultimately final council approval.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Pearl.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so will they help for the next 5 years, or they will help just to develop that connection you are referring to? So they help in the beginning and then that's it, or the service goes over the 5 years?
So the plan will be for 5 years. At about year 3, we will look at what City Administrator Wolf calls a course correction. So we'll look at the plan and make sure that we're still on track, that if, economy changes or something happens that's out of our control, that the plan is identifying that. And then ultimately each year work towards a certain amount of actions and, meeting goals and those types of things, similar to what we've done in our current plan. But it would be for a 5-year time frame.
So the service itself, will be rendered over 5 years. So if in 3 years you will still need them, you will still have their service, or their service ends after a few
Their
months.
service wouldn't necessarily be for 5 years. Their service would be, they would be there to help us on a yearly basis. They're going to help us set up basically a dashboard and a means of being able to present the findings out to the public. And so they're really going to be, a lot of that contract is going to be upfront now to get to this plan. When it gets to council approval, then there's some help in there to help us at year 3. But on the flip side of it, we're also going to be potentially working with them on other financial pieces in the community as well, so they'll be here as part of that. So we're kind of building a longer term relationship with different aspects of the piece of the puzzle, but this is the first piece, but they'll be here as a contractor to the city for other services. And they can kind of help guide those because they all intertwine.
I have one more, but please go ahead if there is anybody else.
Continuation. If they come back for continuing study, if they come back to help, if they come back to build a dashboard, they come back for additional funds?
They do, but a lot of that stuff is built into this first contract. So it's really to get us set up to handle the process moving forward with, right out of the chute with the approval process. So when this plan gets adopted, they'll help us build all the means to be able to track our success over that time frame, and then come back and help us, guide us through maybe a short session on the 3-year plan just to see if we're on track or if we need to change things. But I would say everything after the plan is implemented is going to fall back to the staff and the department heads.
Okay, and we will get to see the contract and all of those items that are included?
The contract is attached to this document on board docs.
That is the contract, huh? Okay, thanks.
I have just one final follow-up question. I understand that the need for that, you explained very well, this would be the second strategic plan, so we want to, improve for that. But is that the idea is that we would use similar services for future years, let's say for the following strategic plan, or we feel that this is one-time thing and then we would not need for a while, for our strategic plans, we would not need this?
The latter. So the plan would be for us to get this infrastructure in place to be able to have staff take it over from the implementation and then start implementing each of the year's goals. So they will do the plan, help us kind of integrate everything into it of what we're doing, capital improvements, everything that we, to make sure it's all kind of following a plan in the strategic plan. And then their contract is, in essence, done. They're willing to help kind of guide us as we need help along the way. And I think you're going to see that guidance coming from other pieces of the puzzle that they might be working on as a consultant to us. But in essence, we will take it from the implementation and the final approval of the plan through the next 5 years and take it from that point.
Thank you, Director, thank you.
It's very similar to so for example, we did an affordable housing market study. We hired the consultant, they dug into all the details, they put it together, they gave us a whole list of recommendations, and now the staff is working on implementing those recommendations. It's the same thing that's going to happen with this.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from committee members? If not, we are looking for I believe, a motion to recommend approval.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Oh.
Barb is on.
Chair votes aye, the ayes have it, the motion passes. And moving on to item 3.7, resolution number 52 of 21-22. Resolution authorizing entering into a development agreement with Water's Edge Development of Sheboygan, LLC, and Watershed Development, LLC.
So I'll start and then I'll turn it over to the city attorney to talk about some specifics on the agreements. But so Watershed is the boutique hotel that's being planned to be constructed on North 15th Street, kind of behind the old Glass Coffee Shop and Dulmus Decor along the river. So that project was a development done by Paul Weaver that originally was supposed to be a phase 1 and phase 2 of a condo development for a total of 33 condominium units. The first phase being 15 units, the second phase being 16 units. When they built the first phase, the interest in the condos wasn't as strong as what they had thought it would have been. So they decided not to proceed forward with phase 2 of the project, which would have built the rest of the condominiums, and instead work on a 25-room boutique hotel with a entertainment space attached to it on the river. So we had a development agreement with the first phase, and it was around $700,000 paid out in two different sections. So we paid a $350,000 upfront payment, and we would pay a $350,000 payback over time. Because at that time, when they were doing those condo units, they didn't know what the market was going to be like, and they had no comparables to get financing, so we kind of helped fill a gap on a $7 million project. So what the documents that Attorney Adams will talk about are the termination of that first contract and a new contract with a different LLC group. The first ones were with Water's Edge LLC, and now this is Watershed. So they have gone through the plan approval process and have developed these into 2 separate parcels and segregated those out and created 2 different LLCs to kind of own the ownership of each of the 2 projects on the same kind of area. So what the agreement is on the second one is that we would provide up to $150,000 of TIF incentive, $30,000 a year for the next 5 years to fill the gap on the hotel project. And it's really related to environmental issues on that site because it was a former manufacturing site of Richardson Lumber. So that $150,000 is based on the fact that they need to create a tax incremental value of $2.6 million of new assessed value on that, on the second phase of the project, and then we will pay out the $30,000 to a total of $150,000 over the next 5 years. So there's some specifics with the agreements that I'll let the attorney talk about, but in essence, that's what we're looking at, is to help facilitate the redevelopment of this boutique hotel on property that was otherwise supposed to have been a second phase of a condo development. So go ahead.
Thank you, Chad.
Okay, so I did pass out to each of you 2 documents. One is entitled Termination Agreement by and between Water's Edge Development of Sheboygan LLC and the City of Sheboygan. The other is entitled Development Agreement by and between Watershed Development LLC and the City of Sheboygan. Originally, what came to you through council was a single document that involved all 3 parties, and we did that because we were sort of short on time. We needed to get this in front of you. They want to get going on this work. And we've been in negotiation since that time. And the documents that you have in front of you, I kind of joked as I was handing them out that it's a 2 for the price of 1. In essence, what we've done is we've taken the agreement that you originally had before you and is in board docs, and have separated it out into 2 agreements, one being the termination agreement, the other being the development agreement. Most of the terms have stayed the same. They've just moved from one agreement to the other. And when you make the motion, I will be instructing you that while you'll be approving both documents, we're going to also make approval of the development agreement contingent on completion of all of the terms of the termination agreement before we'll allow anybody to sign that agreement, because they do need to happen consecutively. There are a couple of other small changes that have occurred between the initial document that you have in front of you and the documents that I handed out today. Some of them have to do with some scheduling things, some details as far as the payment, taking out some confusing language that we wanted out of there that we thought might, sort of make the waters a little more murky. But in essence, it's basically doing what Chad has described to you. Now, I think what I'll do is I'll step back and let you ask any questions that you may have, and then when you're ready to make the motion, I'll give you sort of instructions on what I think the proper motions should be.
So one thing I forgot to add before there's questions is that the first agreement that is being terminated with that agreement had that two-part piece in it, that $350,000 up front and $350,000 over time. That overtime payment was prefaced on meeting a certain amount of value, which they have failed to meet. So in that agreement, it required them to do what was called a shortfall payment and pay us back a calculation based on the shortfall. So they didn't meet it in 2020. So they made a $20,000 payment to us for the shortfall in 2020. They would have to make these payments for the shortfall for the next 4 years. So one of the terms of that termination is they'll make a one-time payment to us of $40,000. Basically, we've agreed to kind of split the difference. So in essence, they'll have paid us $60,000 of the $100,000, I think it is. So we're kind of eating $40,000 of it, but we're also getting the 2.6 million of additional value related to that hotel. So we think in the end that this makes sense to kind of close the books on one agreement and move into the new agreement and not be muddied and keep them both running and trying to, making sure that they're making the payments and the shortfalls and all of that good stuff. So if I really confused you, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, well, we'll start off with Belder Flickipaneski.
The initial document that was the three-part document was the original development agreement, the termination agreement, and the new development agreement?
That's correct.
Well, the original document that was in board docs in front of you was a combination of what is now two agreements, the development agreement and a termination agreement. What it did was terminated the old developers agreement and entered into a new developers agreement. And what we've done now is just divided that into two documents, one terminating the original developers agreement that the city already agreed to, and the other entering into a new agreement. Yeah, the Water's Edge folks preferred to do it that way, and we can do it that way as long as we just take care to make the motion correctly.
Okay, and this termination agreement is the one that basically we split the difference with what was due on the first contract for the condominiums?
Yes.
Okay, the condominiums didn't work. We have more confidence that a boutique hotel will work?
I guess, there's a market for additional hotels, and they're going to be really, gearing it towards the corporate travel. And there's a lot of corporate people that like to go into non-branded type hotels and have more of an exclusive, hotel. So they have the right parties at the table that operate similar ones across the state. And, I think from a traveling businessman, public type of thing, it seems like it makes sense because we don't have something like that in the market.
Okay, thank you.
Todd, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to the question about the boutique hotel. As a past traveler in talking with Paul Weaver and the developer for this, there is a need for it. If we remember back when Grand Stay actually opened up, the reason for Grand Stay was also for longer term stays for executive business people. The situation though is that actually a lot more families and things like that actually stay there also. So the boutique hotel is actually more for the professional transient travelers that come and go on a regular basis. But we also have business people that actually, for our larger corporations that need a place to stay that's more professional, where you don't have, as an example, children running up and down, running to the pool, things like that. There's more characteristics for them to actually have the ability to relax in a more business profession, if that would be the right way to say it. So there is an outcry for it, and the developer is working with Paul Weaver, and he has several locations that he has been very successful with. So he sees this as a great opportunity for the city of Sheboygan. Thank you.
One other thing I would add is that the covered canopy, in the IFC that's online, there's a picture of the renderings that were approved by the Architecture Review Board. There's a large covered canopy on the north side of the unit, and that's really there for event space. So they figure corporate parties, but they also think weddings. So people that want to get married on the Sheboygan River in the background, and then host their party and stay in the hotel, they can all have it, in a very exclusive kind of little resort, if you will.
Alder Perella?
Yes, thank you. What is, from the city's perspective, and that it's relatively related to this, to its, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Only partially related. On the long run, what is more profitable for the city from the tax revenue standpoint, to hotel or the condominium? Just curious about, I know that we don't have a say in that in this case, but just for my knowledge.
So I think I would say the hotel, because not only do we get property taxes, we also get room tax off of hotels. So for the people that stay there, so the heads on the beds kind of thing comes into play. So I think from a property tax value, the hotel and the condo are the tax rate and the final assessed rate based on use is typically very similar, because the condo is typically is assessed as a commercial development anyway. But when it's a hotel, we get room tax, which then comes into the city, and 70% goes to Visit Sheboygan, the tourism arm, and then we keep 30%, and our 30% is then budgeted to pay down debt service. So it's a benefit to the city to have another revenue source off of the project. So we will get room tax off of this as well.
Okay. And just finally, one more comment. I am a little bit surprised that they still consider the corporate traveling as a real profitable. I don't know that the corporate traveling at the moment is as interesting, or the near future is as interesting after, with the pandemic having changed behavior of corporate traveling dramatically. So I would be curious to know if they have any more recent studies and assessment, but that is unrelated to our decision of tonight. I would challenge the concept that is necessarily something that is super florid in the current environment, or actually also in the long run. But that's just my opinion on that.
Thank you. Then back to Alder Flicky-Paneski.
Oh, I'm done. Thank you.
In that case, any other discussion, questions, comments?
Then, assuming not, then what I'm going to recommend that you do is that you move to approve a new termination agreement, which you have in front of you, and an amended development agreement from the one that you had in front of you. And the motion can just simply be to approve the new termination agreement and an amended development agreement with changes as described, and with the contingency that no signatures of the city shall be made on the development agreement until all of the terms of the termination agreement have been satisfied.
Do we have such a motion?
Come on, Bert, repeat it.
So actually, approve the new termination agreement and the amended development agreement with changes as described, and no signature shall be affixed to the development agreement until the termination agreement has been approved.
Do we have a second? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion before us, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Sorry. All opposed? Chair votes aye, the ayes have it, and the motion passes. Thank you. All right, and last but not least, item 3.8, which was a direct referral of resolution number 58 of 2122. A resolution authorizing the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to A&J Commercial for the purchase of one diesel-powered paratransit bus for Shoreline Metro Transportation. Anybody like to speak to this one?
That transportation guy.
Old bus bad, new bus good. This is for a replacement of a paratransit bus in our fleet. Currently, we have 10 vehicles, and we were awarded this grant a couple of years ago to further the replacement of our paratransit buses. So it's going to replace a bus that we purchased back in, I believe, 2011. We have a couple buses, depends on which one bites the dust first, and which we would replace. But this is a item that's been in our CIP for a couple of years now, and is funded traditionally 80-20%. So,
Any questions, comments? In that case, we'll be looking for one question.
I do have, what's the capacity of the bus?
I believe 16, if I'm not mistaken,
Okay, thank you.
with driver.
Okay,
It'll be a CDL style bus.
great, thank you.
All right, last call. Any questions? Discussion, otherwise we'll be looking for a motion to recommend approval.
So moved.
I'd like to bring Attorney Adams up here to make the motion. Just kidding.
We're good.
Thank you, Derek. Then seeing no further discussion, all of those in favor of the motion before us, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Chair votes aye, the ayes have it, and the motion passes. And our next meeting will be on September 27th, 2021, so I guess check your calendars, and if there's any conflicts.
You might want to note that Barbara's been online. Alderperson Feldy has been online. Yeah.
For attendance.
you, Roberta.
You're
Yes.
welcome, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you. We have Alder Feldy online attending.
Thank you. Yep.
Then last up, we have 5.1, which is a motion to adjourn. We have
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Chair votes aye, the ayes have it. We are adjourned.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.